Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to my talk. And as he mentioned, I am actually going to talk to you about social media. And the focus is good things come to those whose tweets. It's going to be what my life has been like in the past year, just on Twitter alone, and what it has done for my actual career. I hope to inspire those of you out there that also want to be more active on social media to actually do that. And hopefully, just from hearing what I've gone through and then just some tips on what's helped me, that it'll also help you all as well. So to start, again, I'm April. If you happen to be on Twitter, you can find me at Vogue and Code. I will say for the first 5-6 years of my career, I worked in luxury fashion. I was a menswear stylist and a visual merchandiser. I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue as well as Neiman Marcus. And after that, I transitioned to the tech industry. I've now been in tech for 6 years. I've had roles within project management as well as a system analyst. Currently, however, I'm at Microsoft. I'm a senior program manager there, and I work on the docs.microsoft.com platform. My focus is interactive features. So the way I tell people, if you can click on something and it does something, that's what I focus on. Those are the features that I help build. And I love it. Now, I'll say never in a million years did I imagine that my life would actually be where it is today. And a lot of that actually comes from being active on social media. Now, for some people, expressing your innermost thoughts on social media is very easy to do. You can just go on Twitter and see that today. However, we all don't have that actual privilege, especially for someone like me, a young Black millennial woman. You know, you might come across some hoops you might have to just jump through just to actually say and be who you want to be on social media. However, the problem that you might run into is that you really fall into two buckets. Either you can actually just sit from the sidelines and say what you think the world wants you to say, or you can actually be your true, authentic self, say how you feel as well. I chose to do the latter and actually be authentic, and that's exactly what happened in 2018. Social media, you can't live with it and you can't live without it. If you're anything like me, you use it to just pass through time. You might also use it to just live vicariously through your friends or even strangers. I do that too. And I will say from 2018, what I've learned is that I found a new reason to actually use Twitter, and that's been for networking. So this tweet that you see here on the screen is the very first thing that I tweeted when I landed in California. February 2018, I moved to Los Angeles from DC. I had received a position with a think tank based in Santa Monica. So I packed up my small studio apartment, bought my one-way ticket, and I was off to LA. I wasn't quite alone. My boyfriend had moved there about 6 months prior, and everything was great. So this tweet, literally, that's what I said right after that, Miley Cyrus style. I hopped off the plane at LAX. Did not have a cardigan, but I probably should have because it was freezing at that time of the year. However, it was the one thing I will say that pretty much started it all for me. Now, I didn't just join Twitter around this time. I had been on Twitter since 2015, but I was only live tweeting for shows. Huge fan of Project Runway, huge fan of American Horror Story, huge fan of anything pop culture related that people were watching, and that's all I actually used Twitter for. I didn't start talking about tech until after I moved to California. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just being expressive. And what does it mean to actually be your true, authentic self? And is there an actual wrong way to express your personality? So, like I mentioned, I moved to LA. I wasn't alone, but I only actually had very few friends. And by few friends, I mean 2. I had my boyfriend, and then I had my little from my sorority. And so I made an effort to meet people that lived in LA. However, I had more success meeting people online. I came to realize that I wasn't quite the typical LA girl. I didn't quite have dreams of being an actress, and I'm only 5'4½", so being a model was like well out the question for me at a very young age. So I said, you know what, I gotta find my people, and I actually found them on Twitter. But then I said, you know, I should probably actually get to meet people in real life. And I figured, you know, probably the best way to meet people in real life in the tech community would be by going to events and going to conferences. And so it was a matter of actually finding those events and conferences. And so As you can see here, I tweeted, next year, I'm starting a separate savings account for each of the following: conferences, concerts, vacations, flash sales, because I can't keep coming out of pocket randomly for these expenses. Something's gotta give. And then I have a gift there. So some people might be a little more reluctant or hesitant to actually post what they need when they're on Twitter. They might feel that it comes from a place of neediness or just wanting people to help them out. And it's not quite that all the time. I know sometimes we fear that there will be some judgment as well that comes from that. But the way I see it, use your personality when you are talking about things, especially in my case where I was saying something that I had needed. I'm a millennial, and so I'm a millennial living on a millennial budget. I love talking about my horrible shopping habits that I have, and I love using GIFs. And later on in this talk, you'll see how that actually did a lot of good for me later on. But in any case, use a personality to help to just resonate more with your peers and your audience. So, direct messages, they can be scary, and I won't go on a tangent about all the interesting DMs I've ever received on social media. However, what I will say is just in general, opening up can be scary. And I knew for a fact that if I kept my DMs closed, then I'd probably miss out on some opportunities. So I actually just kept them open just to see what might come through. I'm actually glad that I kept them open because I got a direct message from someone at Twilio after I tweeted that message. Community developer for Twilio, Megan Spear, she offered me an invite to Twilio Quest and Tea, and she also mentioned the scholarship for Signal. I had no clue who Twilio was or what Twilio did, but I knew for a fact that I wanted to go to a conference and I knew what tea was. So that was enough for me to go ahead and RSVP and say, yeah. So I went, and that's when I got introduced to Twilio, and that was literally just last year. I had a really good time at Twilio Quest. A couple months later, I did end up going to Signal as well, thanks to the scholarship program. And that alone really lit a big fire under just my motivations to actually code more. And so, in addition to that, I was able to make new friends. There's some sitting in this audience now, which I'm really thankful for. And it's also how I met my best friend, Chloe, as well. I know for some of you, opening up your direct messages can be a very scary thought. And I do understand that there are some interesting things that come that way. However, if you're going to be active on social media, people need a way to actually connect with you, and sometimes privately. What I personally do is I keep my DMs open, but the ones that can actually easily come through to me are people that I actually follow. And then for anyone that I'm not following, I have the ability to just delete them or decline them, so that way I don't have to actually engage with that individual. And you can do all that in your Twitter settings. So this one should say share your work, not hear your work. So sometimes we only want to show the best versions of ourselves online and on social media. And we spend so much time striving for perfection and completion when really it's the process that motivates others. So as my network began to expand, I found myself often sharing my story of how I came from fashion into tech, and I started sharing that with a lot of people. But I'm all about efficiency, so I figured, you know what, I'm going to put my whole story in blog posts on a website. And that's how my website was born, vogueandcode.com. However, in true Gemini fashion, I was ready to rebrand, and I needed something different. I knew I wanted to do flat illustration characters, but I could not use Adobe Illustrator to save my life. And so I went on Fiverr. I went to go see who could possibly create my characters for me. After looking at the prices, I did the math, and I said, you know what, this is going to be too expensive to just constantly have someone create and edit for me. So I said, you know what, I need to take the time to actually learn how to use the tools to create illustration characters. So I did what any cheap person would do, and I hopped off social media, learned Adobe Illustrator. And I actually got okay with it. But when it got to a point that I was ready to actually share something with the world, I actually posted what you see here. And this was the very first illustration character drawing that I had really ever fully made and shared online. Now, I understand sharing your work online can be tough for some people because you start thinking, will people like it? Will someone hate it? Will someone steal your ideas as well? And all those things actually did run through my mind when I decided to share what I was working on. However, I'm actually glad that I did share something. When you are sharing your work, you just want to be a little bit more strategic with it. When I was designing characters, I would just show the process more so, drafts of what I was making rather than the final product. The final product is actually what ended up for sale later down the road, and more about that in a second. But just showing that process was just good enough. It actually inspired people to start creating as well. Now, when I posted this tweet that you see here on the screen, I really just wanted my internet friends to see the picture, and I wanted them to shower me in comments, because who doesn't need validation from strangers? But instead, something else happened. So comments. As you might have guessed it, someone left a comment on that particular tweet. Now, comments can actually be the bane of your existence for some of you if you're on social media. However, not all comments are bad comments. And although you may hear some people say, don't read the comments, and actually if you come up closer to me today, I have a pin that says, don't read the comments. There's actually some good that can come out of it, and that's actually what happened to me. This stranger did not know her. She tweeted in response to those stickers that she liked them. She said, I love these. I need a hoodie, t-shirt, laptop sticker, or something with these girls on it. And so I was shocked because someone actually wanted to buy something that I had created. So my friend Jasmine chimed in and she said that I should create stickers. And I was like, Within an hour, I had a sponsor for these stickers. And I started to actually put together just a quick business plan for this. And I essentially was able to create this online store with essentially no money out of my own pocket. Now, comments can be a very dark, scary place for some people, but if you actually own a business or a blog or YouTube videos, comments can actually help you, especially when it comes to improving your merchandise that you have or your products that you have or your content that you have. And in my case, it actually turned me into a business owner, and that's how I created my online store. Had I ignored these comments, I would have lost so much opportunity. So 2 weeks after receiving that comment, the Vogue & Code shop was born. I had a lot of success with the shop. Within the first hour of opening the store, I had $1,000 in sticker sales, which was shocking because the stickers were actually $3.50 a piece. So within that 1 hour, I had exceeded well beyond what I had wanted. In the 2 weeks leading up to the launch, I actually created a landing page. There was a sign up for a mailing list so that way people can actually provide their email address so that way they would know when the store was open. By the time I launched this store, I had 300 or so people on that mailing list. I didn't even offer a discount code for signing up. It was just purely from people just being genuinely interested in what I was created. I think the elephant in the room is the fact that there are black stickers of people in tech, which is something that you don't necessarily see a lot of. People were excited for it. So thanks to word of mouth marketing, thanks to people just being genuinely interested, I was able to open up this store, and I've had a pretty good success for having an accidental business, all thanks to Twitter. Now, job searching. Life was going well. If you remember, I said at the beginning, I was working at a think tank in Santa Monica. I was a systems analyst there. And even though I was doing very well in my entrepreneurial pursuits, I was a little bored in my 9-to-5. And I started to create YouTube videos just teaching Python concepts and began to just spam everyone about all the cool stuff I was doing with Twilio products, more specifically with Autopilot. And while that was awesome, I felt that my 9-to-5 didn't quite reflect the impact that I wanted to make and what I wanted to do, especially for the developer community. So in a sense, I was a systems analyst by day and then like a developer advocate at night. But I knew something had to change, so I started doing the very early stages of job searching. And as some of you in this room can relate, telling people that you're looking for a job while you're employed, especially on such a public platform, is probably the very last thing you want to do, because you never know who's going to see your tweet. You never know who's going to see your LinkedIn updates that you've changed your profile a bit and that you might be searching for a job. So it was December, and I felt miserable. And I had convinced myself that job searching in Q4 was just basically impossible and that no one actually hired during Q4. So I took my theory to Twitter, and I tweeted, Does your company hire during Q4? Knowing that some companies freeze hiring until the new year makes me hesitant to apply anywhere right now. However, if you're actively hiring for a PM or customer advocate-based role, please let me know. Thanks in advance. And that was a very big risk for me personally to take because I didn't know who was going to see that message, but I knew I was miserable and I knew that at this point, I was just ready to have something great happen. So that's why I tweeted it. I actually received so much feedback from people in the tech community for the fact that, they run on different fiscal years, so they're currently hiring, or just the fact that in general, people knew that certain companies were hiring. People reached out to me directly via direct message because good thing those were open, so they were able to actually inform me about their companies. In addition to that, I actually, for the very first time in my life, last year at the age of 28, actually had referrals to jobs. Never before had that ever happened to me, especially working here in this industry. So that was a very big shocker for me that, for the first time in my life, I didn't have to cold apply anywhere. I didn't have to try to beat all the crazy algorithms that are in place to try to weed out candidates. I actually had people interested in actually referring me for positions, not to mention even some CEOs of startups and some of the companies that you may know actually reached out to me about positions. So had I never said anything, I would have missed out on all those opportunities. And I didn't hop on every single one. I actually did a lot of research on a lot of companies, spoke with a lot of current employees at companies to see whether or not it was something that I wanted to pursue. I then settled down on a couple of them and began the interview process. But just in general, this is to show you that, I understand job searching can be tricky. So much opportunity when it comes to Twitter because that's where a lot of the tech community is. But more important, this was to show that this was something that I really needed help with. I took a big risk just stepping out there and asking about this. And then so much came my way once I did. And I understand that for some of you, it might not be the best route to announce publicly that you're job searching. And if that's the case, that's okay as well, because you can also reach out to people just privately as well on social media. I will say, however, though, taking this publicly had actual further reach for me. So, accountability. It was now December, and I was gearing up to create my New Year's resolutions. And like most people during that time, I decided to list my goals that I had for the year. And I don't know what it is about announcing stuff to the public, but it's kind of like once you do it, you feel like you have to follow through with it. And so, like most people around that time, I had actually decided to post my goals, and more specifically, my tech goals. So here's a tweet that I tweeted for goal setting. My non-tech goals, they're coming along still. But just to get some perspective, I wanted to save some money. I wanted to progress to point. I used to do ballet when I was younger. I was a competitive dancer. I wanted to put on muscle and compete again. I actually was a bodybuilder for a couple years. As for tech, the more important goals, I wanted to land a developer advocate role. I wanted to speak at 3 conferences, and I wanted to launch a Python resource. And that's what I shared here. Now, obviously, I'm not a developer advocate today, but I do work in DevRel, so I actually did meet that goal. Conferences, I reached that goal in April of this year, actually, so that happened very fast. And those were actually opportunities that people reached out to me about to speak. So that doesn't even include Signal. This was just stuff that happened prior. And as for that Python resource goal, well, that one I'll get into a bit later, because that also came to fruition thanks to Twitter. But I will say, when I did tweet this, especially that first one, different companies and people from companies started reaching out for developer advocate roles from the likes of like Google and Amazon. And I would say someone like me, I didn't expect to receive any sort of feedback from those sort of companies, especially with my background that came from fashion into tech. And I was thankful for that. The position that I actually have at Microsoft now, one of the guys on my team, he had actually tweeted about it. I sent him a direct message, and that's how the ball got going with that. Social media definitely made a very big difference for me when it came to job searching. So creating content. Now, earlier I touched upon the act of sharing your progress, and what about actually creating content? As I was learning more about Python, I felt inclined to actually create these YouTube videos that I mentioned earlier, just explaining technical concepts. I had the assumption in my head that I can't be the only one that needs to learn something in a more fun, relatable, consumable manner. And so I started creating videos. And I felt that, someone would definitely like it. The way I feel about content is if you have something that you want to put out into the world, do it. Learn any skills you need to actually learn to actually make that happen, and just do it. But most important, you should definitely just share it with the world. Otherwise, it makes it a little harder for people to come across it. So, once you create that content, make sure you do share it, let people know it exists. And I will say, when I was interviewing for jobs, almost every interview that I went on, the interviewer mentioned my content before I even had a chance to bring it up. What that meant was that people was actually seeing the stuff that I was creating and putting out there. And that was pretty big. Now, when I launched my YouTube channel, this was what I had tweeted. Today is the official launch of the Vogue & Code YouTube series for Python 3 Basics. Please watch and subscribe to stay up to date with new videos. You'll probably see that that was June 8th, 2018 when I posted that. Now, you never know, like I said, who might come across your content. And in my case, I had zero clue. Until one day, I got an email. Now, it was now March, and I woke up and decided that I wanted to write a book. I'm always thinking about scaling things, and I said, you know what? I feel like the life I've lived, coming from fashion to tech, should probably go inside a book. And so I tweeted, I want to write a book, transitioning into tech with anecdotes from my personal experience and helpful strategies that you can self-implement. I wanted to cover job searching, interviewing, salary negotiations, and what happens after you get the job. Publishers, where art thou? So around that point in my life, I still found myself still sharing my stories with people. And so I felt putting that into a book form would be most helpful at this point. Probably a month after posting that tweet, I got an email from someone at Wiley Publishing. The email said that he really liked my YouTube videos and wondered if I ever thought about writing a children's Python programming book. I thought the email was fake. And so in true catfish fashion, I went to LinkedIn, I typed in his name, the credentials all checked out. So I was like, okay, we'll play this game. I'll respond to the email and say I want to do it because I actually did want to write a book. And so things didn't really click for me that this was serious until we started talking about royalties. And I was like, oh shoot, this is real. A book is actually happening. And it turns out, July 2020, I'm actually going to be a published author with Wiley Publishing. I have a children's Python programming book coming out. Thank you. I have a children's Python programming book coming out, ages 9 to 14, and it's all focused on learning Python. I'm sure a lot of adults will, or older children, will also love it as well. But all that's to say is that putting my content out there definitely made a big difference. I didn't have to actually pitch this idea to anyone. The publisher came to me. I was able to bypass all the typical avenues that you might have to go through to actually get your book and ideas published. From that email exchange, I really just had to put together just an outline of what that book would look like. And then from there, sales and marketing felt that it was a good fit. And then I signed a contract, and now I'm actually writing a book. So that's pretty cool. Now, before I end this talk, I just want to share one last story with you all, and this one's probably my most favorite. And this one's around just sharing your life and what's happening. Now, I don't share everything that's happening in my personal life on social media. Some of it's boring, so there's that one reason. But I do try to find things to share that I feel would be helpful to the audience, especially if it's something that's resourceful that others could use. Now, when I onboarded at Microsoft, my salary increased, and I said, okay, April, you have been an adult for a little too long. You need to get your life together, and more important, I needed to get my finances in line. So I started reading more from financial blogs, and trying to figure out the best ways to invest and what to do about my bank accounts, all that. And I learned that separating your checking account from your savings account was actually super helpful because it's therefore out of sight, out of mind, you wouldn't touch it. I mentioned earlier that I have horrible shopping habits because I do. So separating my savings from my checkings was great. I then went to look for a bank, found about Ally, and at that time, because I know some things have changed recently, but at that time, they had the highest interest rate on the market. So I decided, you know what, I'm actually going to open up an account with them. So I tweeted here, I'm going to go be a big girl and open up a savings account with Ally. I'm told they have the highest interest rate on the market, and it's best for me to keep my savings account out of sight, out of mind, AKA away from my USAA banking account. I feel like such an adult. And then I posted this gift right here from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt that says, by the power vested in me as an adult who is a grown-up. Now, after I posted that, I forgot how much time went by, but someone from Ally actually sent me a direct message on Twitter. Despite the fact that I did not mention them in that tweet, they saw the message. They sent me a message and said, thank you for my support, and they wanted to send me a token of their appreciation. And could they have my address? Now, I usually would not condone sharing your mailing address with strangers on the internet. However, the account was verified. In addition to that, I knew that my boyfriend and I were in the process of transferring units in our building. So I said, you know what? I can share the address. If it was a person just being creepy, they wouldn't get past the concierge if they even wanted to. So I shared it, and I figured at most they'd probably send me a water bottle and a t-shirt or something. So I was like, sure, here's the address. Some time went by, and hadn't heard anything from them at all. And then one day, I got an email from our concierge saying I had a new package. And I thought that was odd because I hadn't ordered anything recently. So I went downstairs to get it, saw the box, saw that it was from Ally. I was like, oh, this must be, whatever they sent me. But the box was kind of big, so if it was a t-shirt or a water bottle, it was interesting. I got upstairs to my apartment, opened it up, but the box had a little bit of weight to it. So I said, this must be one of those nice swell water bottles because this is kind of heavy. And I kept opening it, and I was like, oh, shoot, this is not a water bottle. They actually gave me an award. And the award was actually for the best use of a GIF, this tweet that you're seeing right here. In addition to that, the icing on the cake, they sent me $500 gift certificate as well. Of course, I tweeted about it. So, kid you not, that is what Ally sent to me. And it said, pretty stoked to check the mail and get this awesome award from Ally. I won for best use of a gift at the 2019 Ally Awards. I got a cool trophy. It does have my name on it, too. And a $500 gift card. Thank you, Ally. Best decision I could have ever made to help grow my money. Now, this is probably peak millennial, because only in 2019 are you ever awarded for using gifts, and then you're also given money on top of that as well. All this to show you is that, when it comes to social media, you never truly know who's watching. Yes, sometimes there may be some bad that comes from it, but hopefully the good does outweigh the bad, and hopefully it definitely does make a really good push for your career. Everything that I just showed you are the things that have happened in my life ever since February 2018. And here we are now, it's August 2019. A lot has transpired, and a lot of it I can attribute thanks to being on social media. So I hope that you all take from this talk that you will actually leverage your vulnerability, be more active on social media, try to be strategic with it as well. In addition to that, I wish you all much more success as well. Thank you.